one common goal that every person has for every action is to be happy. Never regret something that you cannot change.
Bienvenidos de nuevo y ahora con una leyenda. Voy a cambiar al inglés porque necesitamos utilizarlo con este increíble invitado que tenemos, Brian Tracy. Brian, first of all, it's an amazing pleasure to meet you.
Es un gran placer para mí también. Gracias.
There you go, good Spanish. You're basically a legend, a living legend in the world of sales. And for the people that don't know you, I'd like you to give a 30-second intro on how you got into being a public speaker and specifically into sales.
Well, I started off as a laborer. I did not finish school, so I worked in farms, I worked on ranches, I worked in factories, I worked on a ship, and when I could no longer find a laboring job, I got a job in sales in straight commission and going from door to door each day, knocking on doors and selling a small product and just enough to eat. And finally, I began to ask a question which changed my life. And the question was, why are some people more successful than others? Why are some people wealthy? Why do some people start? And we all start with nothing. And some people become very successful. So I began to study and study and study and read your books, for example, and learn, because each person has had an experience that is helpful.
So you would study it through people, through books, through programs. How would you?
I would first of all, I would read. I would ask people, what book should I read, and what books would you advise? And I've had so many wonderful experiences. People say, "Oh, you should read this book. You should read this book." And I read the book, and it had one idea. It changed my life forever. And then I listened to audio programs. I listened to the first audio programs that came out in the 1960s. And I was amazed because there's so much information on an audio program. And then I went to seminars. And I watched.
Do you remember specifically 2 or 3 names that helped you throughout your career?
Well, I listened to Zig Ziglar, I listened to Jim Rohn, I listened to Dennis Waitley, I listened to the motivational speakers.
Did you meet them in person?
Oh yes, in time, as I went up, they became close friends of mine. And so we were almost like partners, and we gave seminars together all over the country.
What do you think was the best of that dream team? Because that was you remember the 1992 basketball dream team of the USA? Those names you're saying, Jim Rohn, Zig Ziglar, that was a dream team.
Yes.
Who was the Michael Jordan of that team, if you don't mind me asking?
Well, there were, by the 1990s, I was in the top 5. And so you could say Jim Rohn, Dennis Waitley, Zig Ziglar, myself, and maybe those are the 4 big ones. And today, the 3 of them are gone. They've either retired or died. And so now, Tony Robbins. Tony Robbins is a wonderful motivational speaker. And another is Les Brown. He's a wonderful motivational speaker. But my goal has always been to have very high content, to give a lot of ideas. And so my reputation in this industry is I teach more ideas per minute than any other speaker. And that was my goal from the beginning, to give value, give a lot of value to my fans.
And you were a little bit more technical than motivational.
No,
you went into.
I was very practical.
Yes.
And everything I taught is something that you can take and use immediately. I got to the point where if you came to my seminar and you followed what I told you to do, you could double your income the following week. And I've done that 1,000 times. Or people come back to me and they say, I did not believe you, but then I did what you said. And my income doubled in a week or doubled in a month. I've been working for 10 years. And with 1 week or 1 month of using your ideas, my income doubled. And I speak now I've spoken now for more than 1,000 big companies, and more than 10,000 small and medium-sized companies.
Is there something you regret on your sales part, or is there something you regret on your life? Like now that you look at it on the rear mirror, what do you think? And what would you tell somebody that's starting their own career as a?
Well, here's something that I learned is that one of the major reasons why people have their foot on the brake that holds them back is regrets. So I made a decision to have no regrets. And the way I explain it, I say, never regret something that you cannot change. And you cannot change a past event. So if something has happened in the past, it's gone, it's over. And you never worry about it. You don't become angry, you don't sue, you don't become angry at other people. Most people's failure is because of their regrets. So my philosophy is no regrets. I don't regret anything. I have never had a bad experience. I've just had learning experiences. You've had the same thing. Is what you do is you look at the mistake that caused you a lot of unhappiness or money. It's usually one of the two. And it's usually because of another person. Almost all of our big problems in life are other people. And then you say, all right, what did I learn from that? That will help me in the future. And you focus on learning. And it's the most, Barbara, my wife, and I talk about this. We find that meeting the right woman or the right man is the major turning point. It's a major turning point in your life. You look back and you don't realize how important that was, because it affected everything for many, many years.
And how do turning points appear later in life?
Later in life, you actually look back, and when you come to a turning point, often you don't realize it's a turning point. It could be an opportunity, it could be a piece of information, it could be a setback or a failure of some kind. Only later do you realize that from that point my life changed completely, and I never went back.
That's Brian. I want to wrap up with a couple more questions. One, I get this message specifically all the time in social media, and sometimes I don't know what to answer when people contact me when they're on the weakest point of their life.
Yes. Well, I mentioned it before. The first thing is you accept. This goes back 200 years. The starting point in dealing with any problem in life is to accept it has happened. You had a car crash, the car has crashed. It's happened. Never become unhappy about a past event, because you can't change it. So what do you say, all right, is what do I do now? What can I learn from this experience that will help me in the future? One of the things that I found very early was that most millionaires, wealthy people, have been broke 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 times before they finally learned enough to become rich. And then they become some of the richest people in the world. So therefore, we only succeed by failing. So if you have a failure, the dumbest thing of all is to have the failure and not learn from it. So you say, what can I learn from this? What lessons? And you write them down, write them down, write them down. And I have a good friend who was in his early 20s, 23, 24, and he and 2 friends of his started a business, real estate business, sales business, marketing business, and they worked very, very hard for 2 or 3 years, and they went broke. They lost everything. And so he sat down. He had to move back with his mother. He sat down and he said, what have I learned from this experience? And he wrote them down. And every week he would take out this list and he would review it, and sometimes add something else. Every week he would review his list of lessons learned. And when he had a new opportunity, new partnership, new business, he would read the list. And he'd study the list. When he had a problem in the business, he would study the list. And by the time he was 50, he had more money than he could spend for the rest of his life. He was so successful because he just kept referring back to his lessons learned. So one of the most important lessons that I learned is never quit. You never quit, you never give up.